So now for our message. Our topic is, what are you demonstrating? We often hear the word, it's a miracle. When something happens to us that we don't expect, and yet we expect it to, then we holler, it's a miracle. Or when we pray for something and it happens for us, then we still think of it as a miracle happening. We don't think we had anything to do with it. We don't think we had a part in that, in creating that miracle in our life. And so, as a result of that, we continue to give our power outside of ourselves to those out, to this idea of God being outside of ourselves. If we believe that our spirit works through us, as us, then it is our spirit at work. And because we see ourselves separated from our spirit, we do not recognize the power that is inherent within us. And therefore we attribute these happenings or these events to a miracles, magic, or a mystical event. When I started on my vacation, I selected 2 books to read since I went there to rest, and I did not know that these books were about magic. I looked at the cover and I selected one for the author, and I selected the other one because I thought it would be a good idea, a good reading. And both of them ended up being books on magic. And I thought during that time, well, I've never addressed the word, the idea, or the word magic. I've always run from it. As a matter of fact, I run from the word magic and miracles. And when somebody said, "Oh, it's a miracle," I'd say, "Oh, it's the natural outcome of the law," which it is. But I never really looked at what those words means in terms of our demonstration down here. So let us take a look at those 3 words. And our first word is magic. Miracle. By definition, miracle is defined, and I read, as an event that appears unexplainable by laws of nature and so is held to be supernatural in origin and act of God. Now, when I thought about how we have these ideas about black magic and white magic, and we think of them as something happening supernatural, so we tend to not go into that field because we are not knowledgeable about the consciousness of miracles or of miracles. If you look at page 358.3, I will read 358.3. There's a place in the mentality and the heights of its greatest realization where it throws itself with complete abandonment into the very center of the universe. There's a point in the supreme moment of realization where the individual merges with the universe, but not to the loss of his individuality, where a sense of the oneness of all life so enters this being that there is no sense of otherness. It is here that the mentality performs seeming miracles, because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. We can do this only by providing the mental equivalent of life, by dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life. By dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life and the fact that as vast, as immense, as limitless as it is, the whole of it is brought to the point of our own consciousness. In other words, I understand that when seeming miracles happen in our life, miracles, magic, or a mystical event take place. It is, we have, at one point, somewhere along the way, we have lifted our consciousness from this level up to around this level, obeying all of the laws from our body to our spirit. You see, because there are many laws, there are many laws of body, mind, and spirit that we have not been told about. We simply just think things happen, happenstance. As metaphysicians, we know that everything happens by law. And if we are obeying the law, simply the laws that we know. No, we don't know the laws. So if we obey the basic laws that we already know, then we bring magic. We bring ourselves, or we lift our consciousness to that place where we can create miracles, magic, and mystical events. So our second word is magic. And I read the definition by Mr. Webster. The act that purports to control or forecast natural events pertaining to the supernatural powers that affect natural events. Metaphysically, magic is a symbol of those qualities which are enlightened intellectually, and the root word meaning a being becoming able. Now, if we believe that we are spiritual beings, then everything that we do has purpose to it. If when we lift our consciousness from this level to this level, something happens. Dr. Holmes said we don't know what happens, but something happens in between here in order to demonstrate, to bring about our demonstrations, providing we are aware of and consciously aware of what is going through our consciousness. Elaine read this morning and random from the textbook. We are in charge of our thoughts, and we must be aware of what we are thinking. And if we are thinking on some idea that we want to demonstrate, then we must demonstrate it. It cannot be kept from us. When we obey the physical, mental, emotional, and mental laws, then magic appears to happen. Now, just taking us back for a little bit, we created the word magic when we were in our spirit bodies to describe an incident when we were in awe of our powers, when we spoke our word or looked at a thing and it was in our possession. Fast forward today, we still have that potential. We have that potential to speak our word and to bring into our world demonstrations that which we desire. And now because we had that potential when we were spiritual beings, and we are simply here now as Dr. Daya said, having a human experience, we still have that potential to bring magic into our life, to bring whatever it is we want to demonstrate, which appears as magic, simply by obeying the laws. It is through our spiritual practice of forgiveness to ourselves and others, which are reflected in our mind as images, and the Bible describes them as our family, our brothers, our sisters, our children, our friends, and our relationships. And remember, forgiveness is feeling differently about the same thing. It is through our spiritual practice of prayer, spiritual mind treatment, our method of prayer, meditation, contemplation, and observation that we activate or tap into these states of consciousness. It is through our willingness to let go of the past and remain in the present moment as much as possible that we move into demonstrating our heart's desire. Our third and last word to consider is mystical. By definition, and I read, mystical events are brought about in the soul by the application and appreciation of the laws of nature. Mystical events in healing have nothing to do with the healing of physical disease and effects. Miracles are not extended phenomena, exciting or wonderment. This state, as I see it, when we reach the mystical state of mind, this is the mystical state of mind. This is the part of our mind that Dr. Holmes talked about. If we were to continue our practices, we would certainly tap into this state and demonstrate whatever it is in our life. And then it will not be a miracle for us. It will not be magic for us. It would simply be our knowing that we obeyed the law. And when we obey the law, then we must demonstrate. Mystical events happens from the spirit level of our being when we have awakened the powers that have lain dormant or raised to the I am level of consciousness. Mystical events, you see, when we were spiritual beings, everything that we did, we demonstrated. When we looked at something, we drew it into our world. It was in our possession. So fast forward today, we still think that we can do the same thing, only it's taken us longer now. And it's taken us longer now because a lot of water has gone under the bridge, and we have often felt separated from our good and separated from God. So then we don't bridge that gap of bringing those three parts of our being together: our physical, our mental, our body, our soul, and our spirit together in one law. There are laws here that we do not understand at this level, that we do not understand as yet. And because we don't understand them, we've got to name them, we got to call them something. So we call it magic, we call it miracles, or we call it mystical. Mystical events happens when certain facets of spiritual growth takes place by efforts of spiritual practices on planes of nature where laws are yet unrecognized by people at large. In other words, mystical events take place because of our spiritual growth, because of our spiritual practices, which I've just read. It takes place and it simply happens. It happens at this level. We are conscious of it at this level. And it is simply because of what we do. There have been many times, oh my goodness, how many classes I've taken, how many books I've read, how many workshops that I've attended, taken Tai Chi, yoga, workshops after workshops, seminars. I've studied with an ashram for 2 years, all trying to make it happen, because I thought I could make it happen. They told me this would happen, so I thought that if I did this or I did that, fasting was one, that I would reach that state. And it is not that way. And I'll tell you, it is not that way. It's simply, we must be earnest in what we're doing. What we must become committed to who we are, what we are, changing our perceptions. When we change our perception, then our whole life change. When we change our values, we change our attitudes. When we change our attitudes, the behavior of everything and everyone around us changes. And it can't help, because it just happens. And that is what the teachings of Science of Mind is about, changing the flow of energy in our life. In other words, calling a spade, when we recognize as an aspect of our spirit, it becomes part of us. When we recognize what is going on down here, or what has demonstrated in our life, is as a result of our spiritual practice. And because of our spiritual practice, then we can give thanks to ourselves, pat ourselves on the back, and move on. I read somewhere where miracles happen in our life, seeming miracles happens in our life as when soul's way of appreciating what the work that we have done. You see, we are in partnership with who we are. We are in partnership with our soul. And when we continue our spiritual practices, we continue to remain committed to changing our course, the course of our life, then we cannot help but demonstrate that which is for our highest good and for the highest good of all concerned. So in closing, when you think of the word magic, miracles, magic, and mystical, remember it's only one law, and these are just degrees of the law. And Dr. Holmes said anyone can use the law, and since we know that we can, then let us demonstrate that which we call magic, miracles, and mystical events in our life. Lord, speak to me in ways I can understand. And give me the courage to follow through. Knowing that everything is in divine order. We're here this morning simply to be reminded that we are truly magnificent beings with the potential to create magic, to create mystical events, to create miracles in our lives. And we do so for our highest good and for the highest good of all concerned. And so